The horizon blazed with amber fire as Dahlia Porter clutched her meager belongings to her chest, the stagecoach rumbling away behind her in a cloud of dust. The small town of Clearwater Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1878, stretched before her, a single dusty street lined with weathered buildings that seemed to sag under the weight of the vast sky. This was her last chance, her final refuge after her family had turned her away. No use to anyone. Her stepmother had sneered the day Dahlia's father died. A 20-year-old unmarried woman with no skills except reading those useless books? You're nothing but a burden. The words still stung as Dahlia adjusted her worn bonnet and straightened her faded blue dress. Her cousins had taken her in for 3 months, then her aunt for 2. But the message had always been the same: another mouth to feed, another problem to solve. Now, with nowhere else to turn, she'd come west on her last dollars to find the only remaining family. She had a distant uncle who owned the general store. Miss Porter, a weathered old man with spectacles perched on his nose, approached her. I'm Henry Wilkes. Your uncle asked me to meet you. Dahlia's heart sank. Is he not here? The old man's expression clouded. I'm afraid I have bad news. Your uncle passed 3 weeks ago. Pneumonia took him fast. The world seemed to sway beneath Dahlia's feet. But I've nowhere else to go. Mr. Wilkes sighed, his eyes sympathetic. He left the store to his business partner. There's nothing for you here, Miss Porter. I'm sorry. Dahlia felt tears threatening, but forced them back. She would not break down in the street like some helpless child. Thank you for telling me, Mr. Wilkes. The boarding house might take you in for a night, he offered before tipping his hat and walking away. Dahlia stood alone in the street, the weight of her situation crushing down upon her. No money, no family, no prospects. She had learned to read and write, to appreciate literature and art, useless skills in this harsh frontier world. Her father had indulged her education, never preparing her for a world without his protection. As she stood frozen in indecision, a commotion erupted from the saloon across the street. A man stumbled backward through the swinging doors, landing hard in the dirt. Another man followed, tall and imposing in a worn leather vest and dusty hat. You don't cheat honest men in my town, Barton, the standing man growled, his hand hovering near the gun at his hip. The fallen man scrambled to his feet. This ain't over, Archer. It is if you want to keep breathing, Archer replied, his voice steady and cold. Dahlia watched, transfixed by the confrontation, until the man called Barton slunk away toward the livery. Only then did the tall man notice her standing there, clutching her small valise. His eyes, startlingly blue beneath the brim of his hat, assessed her with a quick glance. You lost, madam? He asked, his voice softening as he approached. I. Dahlia hesitated, pride warring with desperation. I've just arrived, but my uncle, who I was to stay with, has passed away. The man nodded, removing his hat to reveal dark blonde hair that curled slightly at his temples. Aaron Caldwell, Sheriff of Clearwater Creek. And you would be? Dahlia Porter, she replied, extending her hand formally as she'd been taught. Instead of the delicate handshake she expected, his calloused hand enveloped hers completely. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through her arm. Miss Porter, you look about ready to fall over. When's the last time you ate? The question made her realize she hadn't eaten since a meager breakfast on the stagecoach the previous day. I'm quite all right, she lied. Sheriff Caldwell's expression told her he wasn't fooled. The cafe serves a decent meal. Allow me to escort you. I couldn't possibly. Consider it my civic duty, he interrupted with a small smile that transformed his stern face. Can't have visitors collapsing in our streets. Bad for business. Before she could protest further, he'd taken her valise and offered his arm. Dahlia hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in the crook of his elbow. The solidarity of him beside her was both foreign and reassuring. Your uncle was Samuel Porter? He asked as they walked. Yes. Did you know him? Everyone knew Sam. His expression softened. Good man. Fair in his dealings. I never met him, Dahlia admitted. He was my father's brother, but they had a falling out years ago. They reached the small cafe, and Sheriff Caldwell held the door. Inside, the warm aroma of fresh bread and coffee enveloped her, making her stomach clench painfully with hunger. Mabel, the sheriff called to a plump woman behind the counter. This here's Miss Porter. She could use a hearty meal. Coming right up, Mabel replied with a smile, bustling away. Sheriff Caldwell guided Dahlia to a table by the window. You have other family you can wire? Dahlia shook her head. No one who would welcome me. My father died last year, and my stepmother made it clear I was. She paused, the words sticking in her throat. Unwelcome. Understanding dawned in his eyes. I see. I have some education, Dahlia said quickly. I can read and write well. Perhaps there's a school in need of a teacher? School's been closed since Miss Winters married a rancher last spring, he replied. Town council's been looking, but funds are tight. Dahlia's hopes dimmed further. What use was a woman who could discuss Shakespeare but couldn't cook a proper meal or sew a straight seam? I need work, Sheriff. Any work. The admission cost her pride, but pride wouldn't feed her. Before he could respond, Mabel arrived with a plate heaped with roast beef, potatoes, and green beans. Dahlia's mouth watered at the sight. Eat first, Sheriff Caldwell said gently. We'll figure something out after. Dahlia didn't need to be told twice. She ate with as much decorum as her hunger would allow, aware of the sheriff watching her with those penetrating blue eyes. There might be something, he said finally. The Donovan place. Dahlia looked up from her plate. Donovan. Margaret Donovan owns the largest cattle ranch this side of the territory. She's getting on in years, and I heard she's looking for someone to help with correspondence, bookkeeping, that sort of thing. Hope flickered in Dahlia's chest. That's something I could do. It's 5 miles out of town. Not an easy place. His expression turned serious. Margaret Donovan's not known for her warm nature, Miss Porter. Neither was my stepmother, Dahlia replied with a small smile. I'm quite accustomed to difficult women. For the first time, Sheriff Caldwell laughed, a rich, warm sound that made something flutter in Dahlia's stomach. I'll ride out there with you tomorrow, if you'd like. Can't promise she'll take you on, but it's worth asking. Thank you, Dahlia said, meaning it more than he could know. You've been exceedingly kind to a stranger. That's how we do things out here, he replied, though something in his eyes told her he didn't extend such courtesy to everyone who passed through Clearwater Creek. After the meal, Sheriff Caldwell walked her to the boarding house and arranged for a room, insisting on paying despite her protests. You can settle up when you're earning, he said firmly. I'll come for you at first light. The ride to Donovan's isn't short. That night, Dahlia lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time since her father's death, someone had shown her genuine kindness without expectation. Sheriff Aaron Caldwell was nothing like the men she'd known back east. He was direct, unpolished, yet there was an inherent decency in him that she found compelling. She fell asleep thinking of blue eyes and the promise of tomorrow. True to his word, the sheriff arrived at dawn with 2 horses. Dahlia emerged in her only other dress, a serviceable gray wool that had seen better days. Ever ridden before? He asked, leading a gentle-looking mare toward her. Not since I was a child, she admitted. Daisy here's steady as they come. She'll take good care of you. With his hands at her waist, he lifted her into the saddle as if she weighed nothing at all. The casual display of strength made her breath catch. As his hands lingered a moment longer than necessary, Dahlia felt heat rise to her cheeks. The ride gave Dahlia her first real look at Wyoming territory. The vast landscape stretched in every direction, rolling hills, distant mountains, and a sky so wide it made her feel infinitesimal beneath it. Sheriff Caldwell rode beside her, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing bits of local history. How long have you been sheriff? She asked as they crested a hill. For years, he replied. Came out here after the war. Needed open spaces after what I'd seen. You fought in the war? She studied his profile, trying to gauge his age. He couldn't be much over 30. Union cavalry. Joined up when I was 17. His expression darkened momentarily. Saw things no boy should see. I'm sorry, she said softly. He glanced at her, his expression softening. Nothing for you to be sorry about. It's long past. But Dahlia could see the shadows still lingered. She understood what it meant to carry ghosts. As they approached the Donovan ranch, Dahlia's nerves returned. The main house was impressive by frontier standards, a 2-story wooden structure with a broad porch and actual glass windows. Several outbuildings and corrals surrounded it, with cowboys visible in the distance working cattle. Biggest spread in 3 counties, Sheriff Caldwell explained. Old man Donovan built it from nothing. When he died, everyone expected Margaret to sell, but she's run it better than he ever did. A ranch hand took their horses as they dismounted. Sheriff Caldwell led Dahlia up the steps and knocked on the door. A moment later, it swung open to reveal a stern-faced woman in her 60s, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Aaron Caldwell," she said, her voice as hard as her expression. "What brings the law to my door?" "Mrs. Donovan," he replied with a respectful nod. "I've brought someone I thought might interest you. This is Miss Dahlia Porter. She's well-educated and looking for work. Heard you might need help with your books and correspondence." Margaret Donovan's sharp eyes assessed Dahlia. "Porter? Any relation to Samuel?" "He was my uncle, madam." Never knew Sam had family back east. She stepped aside. "Come in, then. No point in discussing business on the porch." The interior of the house was surprisingly refined, with actual carpets and furniture that must have been brought in from back east at great expense. "Sit," Margaret commanded, gesturing to chairs in the parlor. "So, Miss Porter, what brings you to Wyoming?" Dahlia told her story simply, omitting the more painful details about her stepmother's cruelty. "I need work, Mrs. Donovan. I'm a quick learner, and I work hard. Can you manage accounts? Write proper letters? Handle business correspondence?" "Yes, madam. My father was a banker. He ensured I was educated in such matters." Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. A banker's daughter, reduced to seeking employment in Wyoming territory. The world turns in strange ways. She studied Dahlia for a long moment. "I'll give you a month's trial. Room and board plus $5 a week. If you prove useful, we'll discuss permanent arrangements." Dahlia could scarcely believe her good fortune. "Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. I won't disappoint you. See that you don't." Margaret turned to Sheriff Caldwell. "Stay for coffee, Aaron? I've got fresh biscuits." His smile was warm. "Never been known to turn down your biscuits, Margaret." As they shared coffee and biscuits dripping with honey, Dahlia observed the easy rapport between the stern ranch owner and the sheriff. There was history there, something like respect mixed with affection. "How's that shoulder?" Margaret asked him at one point. "Healed clean," he replied. "Your poultice did the trick." "Bullet wound," Margaret explained to Dahlia. "This fool tried to stop a bank robbery single-handed last winter." "Got 3 of the 4, Sheriff Caldwell protested mildly. "And nearly bled to death in the process," Margaret retorted. When they'd finished, the sheriff rose to leave. "I'll check in on you in a week or so, Miss Porter. Make sure you're settling in all right." "That won't be necessary," Margaret said firmly. "The girl will be fine." "All the same," he replied, his eyes on Dahlia, "I'll be by." Something in his gaze made Dahlia's heart beat faster. "I'd appreciate that, Sheriff." After he left, Margaret showed Dahlia to a small but comfortable room on the 2nd floor. "Bathrooms down the hall. We have running water, my husband's pride and joy before he passed." "It's lovely," Dahlia said honestly. After months of uncertainty, having a room of her own felt like luxury. "Rest today," Margaret instructed. "Tomorrow I'll show you what needs doing. There's a trunk of clothes in the attic that belonged to my daughter before she moved to Denver. Help yourself to anything that fits. Those Eastern dresses won't last a month out here. Your daughter won't mind?" A shadow passed over Margaret's face. "Caroline hasn't been home in 6 years. Doubt she'd notice." That evening, Dahlia explored the attic and found the trunk. Caroline Donovan had been closer to Dahlia's size than she expected, and the practical skirts and blouses would serve her well. As she held up a blue calico dress to herself, Dahlia caught her reflection in an old mirror propped against the wall. For the first time in months, hope shone in her eyes. Perhaps here, in this wild place so far from everything she'd known, she might find a way to belong. The following weeks proved challenging but rewarding. Margaret Donovan was indeed difficult, demanding, exacting, and quick to criticize, but she was also fair. When Dahlia reorganized the ranch's bookkeeping system to make it more efficient, Margaret had nodded with something like approval. Not entirely useless after all, had been her highest praise. True to his word, Sheriff Caldwell rode out to the ranch the following week. Dahlia was in the garden harvesting vegetables when she heard hoofbeats. Looking up, she shielded her eyes against the sun and felt an unexpected flutter of excitement when she recognized his broad-shouldered silhouette. "Miss Porter," he called, dismounting with easy grace. "You're looking well." Dahlia was suddenly conscious of her dirt-smudged hands and the kerchief tied over her hair. "Sheriff Caldwell, this is a surprise. Told you I'd check in." he replied, approaching with his hat in his hands. How are you finding life at the Donovan Ranch? Challenging, she admitted with a smile, but good. Mrs. Donovan is teaching me to garden, as you can see. Not very successfully, I'm afraid. He chuckled, the sound warming her. Looks like you're doing just fine to me. Margaret appeared on the porch. Aaron Caldwell. Don't just stand there distracting my help. Come inside if you're visiting. Over coffee, the sheriff shared news from town and asked Margaret's advice about a dispute between neighboring ranchers. Dahlia listened, fascinated by the complex social fabric of this frontier community. Miss Porter's been a godsend with these accounts, Margaret said unexpectedly. Found 3 mistakes Miller at the bank made last quarter. Saved me nearly $100. Sheriff Caldwell's eyes met Dahlia's, warm with approval. Doesn't surprise me one bit. Miss Porter strikes me as remarkably capable. The compliment, simple as it was, meant more to Dahlia than all the flowery praise she'd received from suitors back east. Here was a man who valued competence and hard work, qualities her stepmother had dismissed as unladylike. As he was leaving, Sheriff Caldwell hesitated on the porch. The town's having a harvest dance Saturday next. Thought you might like to attend, Miss Porter. Get to know some of the folks in Clearwater. That's thoughtful of you, Sheriff, Dahlia replied, her pulse quickening. I'd enjoy that very much. I'll come by around 4 then. He settled his hat back on his head, and with a final nod to them both, mounted his horse and rode away. After he'd gone, Margaret gave Dahlia a shrewd look. That man's sweet on you, girl. Dahlia felt her cheeks warm. He's simply being kind. Aaron Caldwell doesn't ride 10 miles to be simply kind to just anyone. Margaret shook her head. Known him since he first came to this territory, haunted and half-wild from the war. He's a good man. Better than most. The older woman's approval surprised Dahlia. You think highly of him. He saved my son's life once, Margaret said quietly. Thomas was thrown from a horse, crushed his leg. Aaron carried him 10 miles through a blizzard to get him to the doctor. Her expression softened with memory. Any man who'd do that has earned my respect. I didn't know you had a son, Dahlia ventured. Thomas died 2 years later. Pneumonia, same as your uncle. Margaret's voice held old grief. Life out here takes as much as it gives, girl. Remember that. In the days leading up to the dance, Dahlia found herself watching the road more often than necessary, hoping for another visit from the sheriff. She told herself it was merely the isolation of ranch life that made her anticipate his company, but in her heart, she knew it was more. Saturday arrived clear and crisp, autumn painting the distant hills in russet and gold. Dahlia selected the best of Caroline's dresses, a deep blue cotton with delicate white piping that complemented her fair coloring. She'd even found a matching ribbon for her hair. You'll do, Margaret pronounced when Dahlia came downstairs. Then, unexpectedly, she pressed a small jar into Dahlia's hand. My rose petal cream. For your cheeks and lips. Just a touch, mind you. The gesture touched Dahlia deeply. Beneath Margaret's stern exterior lived a woman who remembered what it was to be young. At precisely 4 o'clock, Sheriff Caldwell arrived. He'd traded his usual dusty work clothes for clean dark trousers, a white shirt, and a black vest. His hair was neatly combed, and he'd trimmed his beard. The transformation from rugged lawman to handsome gentleman made Dahlia's breath catch. His reaction upon seeing her was equally gratifying. For a moment, he simply stared, hat in hand. Miss Porter, he finally said, his voice slightly hoarse. You look beautiful. Thank you, Sheriff, she replied, suddenly shy under his intense gaze. You're very handsome yourself. Margaret broke the moment with a snort. If you two are done making eyes at each other, you'd best get going. Roads aren't good after dark. The ride to town was filled with easy conversation. Sheriff Caldwell told stories about the characters in Clearwater Creek, making Dahlia laugh with his wry observations. I've never seen you laugh like that, he said at one point, his eyes warm on her face. I haven't had much cause for laughter lately, she admitted. His expression sobered. Your family, the ones who called you a burden, they were wrong, Dahlia. It was the first time he'd used her given name, and it sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cooling evening air. Thank you, Aaron, she replied softly, testing his name on her lips. It felt right. The harvest dance was held in the town hall, decorated with autumn leaves and lit with dozens of lanterns. It seemed everyone in Clearwater Creek and the surrounding ranches had turned out for the event. Dahlia felt eyes upon her as Aaron escorted her inside, his hand warm at the small of her back. "Folks are curious," he explained quietly. "We don't get many new faces, especially not ones as pretty as yours." The compliment warmed her as Aaron introduced her around. Women assessed her with varying degrees of friendliness, while men tipped their hats respectfully, clearly noting the sheriff's proprietary manner toward her. When the music started, Aaron led her onto the dance floor. "Fair warning, I'm not much of a dancer," he said with a rueful smile. "Then we're well matched," Dahlia replied. "I was always stepping on my dance instructor's toes." His hand settled at her waist, and hers on his shoulder. Despite his disclaimer, Aaron moved with natural grace, guiding her confidently through the lively reel. Dahlia felt lighter than she had in years, twirling and laughing in his arms. As the evening progressed, they danced several more times, but Aaron made sure Dahlia met everyone, encouraging her to dance with other men when they asked. She appreciated his thoughtfulness. He was helping her establish herself in the community, not just keeping her to himself. During a break in the dancing, Aaron brought her a cup of punch and guided her to a quiet corner. "You're a natural at this," he observed. "Everyone's charmed by you." "I doubt that," she said with a laugh. Mrs. Whitaker looked at me like I might steal her silver. Elvira Whitaker looks at everyone that way, including her husband. His expression grew more serious. "You've made quite an impression on Margaret. She told me yesterday you're the daughter she wishes Caroline had been." Dahlia was startled by this revelation. "She said that. Not in so many words, but I know Margaret. She doesn't suffer fools or lazy people. The fact that you're still there after a month speaks volumes." "She's been kinder than I expected," Dahlia admitted, though she'd never admit to kindness. "Margaret Donovan lost more than most. Makes a person hard on the outside." His eyes held Dahlia's. "But you saw past that, didn't you? You have a gift for seeing people, Dahlia Porter." The way he looked at her made her heart race. "Aaron," she began, but was interrupted by a commotion at the door. 3 men entered, trailed dirty and radiating trouble. The music faltered as conversations died. Aaron straightened, instantly alert. "Stay here," he murmured to Dahlia, moving toward the newcomers with measured steps. Caldwell, the leader of the 3, called, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Thought we might find you here." Dahlia recognized him as the man Aaron had confronted outside the saloon the day she arrived. "Barton." "Evening, Barton," Aaron replied evenly. "This is a private town gathering. You and your friends aren't welcome." "That right?" Barton sneered, his hand hovering near his gun. "Seems mighty unfriendly, considering we rode all this way." The tension in the room was palpable. Women drew back, men shifted protectively toward their families. Dahlia watched, heart in her throat, as Aaron faced the 3 men alone. "I'm only going to say this once." Aaron's voice was deceptively calm. "Leave now, peacefully, and there won't be trouble." Barton's eyes narrowed. "Maybe I don't want to leave. Maybe I came to dance with the pretty ladies." His gaze found Dahlia, and a malicious grin spread across his face. "Like that one there." Aaron moved, placing himself between Barton's line of sight and Dahlia. "That's not happening." "You her keeper, Sheriff?" Barton taunted. "Didn't know you had claim on Sam Porter's niece." The mention of her uncle sent a chill through Dahlia. How did this man know who she was? "Last chance, Barton," Aaron warned, his hand now resting on his holstered gun. For a tense moment, Dahlia thought violence was inevitable. Then, surprisingly, Barton laughed and stepped back. "Another time, Sheriff." His eyes found Dahlia again over Aaron's shoulder. "Tell your lady friend to ask about her uncle's gold. Might be interesting." With that cryptic remark, Barton and his companions backed out the door. The room collectively exhaled, the musicians hesitantly starting up again. Aaron spoke briefly to several men near the door, presumably asking them to keep watch, before returning to Dahlia. "I'm sorry about that," he said, his expression troubled. "What did he mean about my uncle's gold?" Dahlia asked. Aaron ran a hand through his hair. "There were rumors Sam had a claim up in the hills that was producing. Nothing substantial, just talk. Sam never confirmed it to anyone, far as I know. Why would Barton think I knew anything about it?" "He's fishing," Aaron replied. "Sam died suddenly. If there was gold, it wasn't found among his effects." The wonderful evening had been tarnished by Barton's appearance. Sensing her distress, Aaron gently took her elbow. Would you like to leave? I can take you back to Margaret's. No, Dahlia decided, straightening her shoulders. I won't let that man ruin this night. Aaron's smile returned, warm with admiration. That's the spirit. They rejoined the dancing, but Dahlia couldn't entirely shake her unease. Something about Barton's words suggested a deeper story, one connected to her uncle's death. Later, as they rode back to the Donovan Ranch under a canopy of stars, Dahlia voiced her concerns. Do you think Barton had something to do with my uncle's death? Aaron was quiet for a moment. Sam died of pneumonia. Doc Jenkins treated him for weeks before the end. But you have doubts? He sighed. Nothing specific. Just that Barton and his crew were in town around that time. They've been trouble wherever they go. They rode in contemplative silence until the lights of the ranch appeared in the distance. As they approached the hitching post near the house, Aaron drew his horse alongside hers. Dahlia, he said softly, whatever Barton's after, I won't let him hurt you. The protective promise in his voice warmed her more than any declaration of affection could have. I know, she replied. He helped her down from her horse, his hands lingering at her waist. In the silver moonlight, his eyes were dark and intent on hers. I had a wonderful time tonight, Dahlia said, suddenly breathless at his nearness. So did I. His voice was low, intimate in the quiet night. Dahlia. The porch door opened, spilling lamplight into the yard. That you, girl? Margaret called. It's past midnight. The moment broken, Aaron stepped back with a rueful smile. Mrs. Donovan's timing is impeccable. She's protective, Dahlia said with a small laugh. As she should be. He took her hand, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Good night, Dahlia Porter. Good night, Sheriff, she replied, her skin tingling where his lips had touched. As she watched him ride away, Dahlia knew with sudden clarity that she was falling in love with Aaron Caldwell. The realization should have frightened her. She'd known him barely a month, but instead, it felt like coming home after a long journey. The following weeks brought increased activity at the ranch as cattle were rounded up for market before winter set in. Dahlia found herself busier than ever, managing the accounts for the cattle sales and helping Margaret prepare the house for the coming cold. Aaron visited when he could, sometimes just for coffee, other times staying for dinner. Each visit deepened the connection between them. Dahlia learned about his childhood in Ohio, his experiences during the war, and how he drifted west afterward, seeking peace he couldn't find back east. In turn, she shared stories of her father's kindness, her love of books, and even, eventually, the painful details of her stepmother's cruelty after her father's death. She called me useless, Dahlia confessed one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the hills. Said no man would want a wife who had her nose always in a book and couldn't keep house properly. Aaron's jaw tightened with anger on her behalf. She was wrong. Any man would be fortunate to have you, Dahlia. Your mind, your kindness, your strength, they're rare gifts. His words healed something broken inside her. For the first time, Dahlia felt truly seen and valued for who she was. As autumn deepened toward winter, a new concern arose. Barton and his men had been seen in the area again, watching the Donovan Ranch from a distance. Aaron increased his patrols, often riding out to check on Dahlia and Margaret. I don't like it, he told Dahlia during one such visit. They're planning something. Could they really believe my uncle had gold hidden somewhere? Dahlia asked. It's possible, Aaron admitted. Sam kept to himself. If he did find a rich vein, he might not have told anyone. But why would they think I know anything about it? Because you're his only living relative, Margaret interjected, joining them on the porch. In their minds, he must have told you something or left you some clue. He didn't, Dahlia said firmly. I never even met the man. Margaret and Aaron exchanged glances. They may not believe that, Aaron said gently. You think they might try to force information from me? The idea sent a chill through Dahlia. I won't let that happen, Aaron promised, his hand covering hers protectively. But I'd feel better if you stayed in town for a while, where I can keep a closer eye on you. Nonsense, Margaret said firmly. The girl stays here. We've got ranch hands all over this property. Barton would be a fool to try anything. Margaret, Aaron began, but the older woman cut him off. I've got my shotgun and I know how to use it. Besides, winter's coming. First snow will drive them back to whatever hole they crawled out of. The argument continued, but in the end, Margaret's stubbornness won out. Dahlia would remain at the ranch, but Aaron insisted on leaving one of his deputies to stay in the bunkhouse for added security. That night, unable to sleep, Dahlia found herself in her uncle's former study. Margaret had given her permission to use it for the ranch accounts, but Dahlia had never thoroughly explored the space. Now, with questions about her uncle's possible gold discovery, she began examining the bookshelves and desk more carefully. Behind a row of ledgers, she found a small leather-bound journal. Opening it, she recognized her uncle's handwriting from the stored documents she'd seen. Most entries were mundane weather reports, business transactions, but as she flipped through the pages, one entry caught her eye. October 3rd, 1877 found promising vein in North Ridge. Must keep quiet until claim is secure. Too many eager ears in town. Dahlia's heart raced as she continued reading. The entries grew more excited, describing a rich gold deposit that Samuel Porter had discovered while hunting. He'd filed a claim under a false name to avoid attention, working the site alone on weekends. The final entry, dated just 2 weeks before his death, read, "Fever worsening. Must secure what I've found. D will know what to do with it." D. Her father's name had been Daniel. With trembling hands, Dahlia closed the journal. Her uncle had indeed found gold, and he'd intended for her father to know about it. But her father had died before Samuel could contact him. Now she, another D. Porter, had arrived instead. The knowledge felt dangerous. If Barton suspected what she'd just discovered, he wouldn't hesitate to hurt her to get this information. Dahlia carefully replaced the journal behind the ledgers. She would tell Aaron tomorrow, but no one else. Sleep eluded her that night as she pondered her discovery. By morning, she'd made a decision. After breakfast, she asked Margaret for permission to ride into town. "I need to speak with Sheriff Caldwell," she explained. "It's important." Margaret studied her face. "Found something in Sam's study, did you?" Dahlia startled. "How did you?" "Girl, I've been watching you pace since dawn with that worried look. Whatever you found, it's best Aaron knows about it." She nodded. "Take Deputy Wilson with you." The ride to town was tense, Dahlia constantly scanning the landscape for signs of Barton and his men. They reached Clearwater Creek without incident, the deputy escorting her directly to the sheriff's office. Aaron looked up from his desk, surprise and pleasure crossing his face at the sight of her. "Dahlia, what brings you to town?" "I need to speak with you privately," she said, glancing meaningfully at the deputy and the clerk in the corner. Understanding immediately, Aaron led her to a small back room that served as his living quarters. Simple but neat, it reflected his practical nature. Dahlia wasted no time, showing him the journal she'd brought. "My uncle did find gold," she explained as Aaron read through the entries. "And I think he was trying to secure it for my father when he died." Aaron's expression grew grave. "This is what Barton's after. Question is, how did he know about it?" "Someone in town must have suspected," Dahlia reasoned. "Or perhaps my uncle confided in someone before he died." "Doc Jenkins," Aaron said suddenly. "Sam might have told him, knowing he was dying." "We should speak with him," Dahlia suggested. Aaron shook his head. "Doc's away delivering a baby at the Peterson farm. Won't be back for days." He closed the journal, his decision made. "We need to find this claim before Barton does." "How?" "The journal doesn't give its location. North Ridge is a big area, but not impossible to search. The claim office would have records under whatever false name your uncle used." Aaron's eyes met hers, serious and determined. "Dahlia, this gold legally belongs to you as Sam's heir. We need to secure it properly." The way he said, "we," filled Dahlia with warmth. Even faced with the prospect of gold, Aaron's concern was for her rights, her security. "What should we do?" she asked. "You'll stay in town tonight, where it's safe. I'll check the claim office records, see if I can identify which claim was your uncle's." He took her hand, his expression softening. "Dahlia, I don't care about the gold. I care about keeping you safe." The sincerity in his voice made her heart swell. "I know," she whispered. He arranged for her to stay at the hotel, posting a deputy outside her door. That night, Dahlia could barely sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of her uncle's gold and, more predominantly, Aaron Caldwell's protective concern. Morning brought Aaron to her door, his expression triumphant. "Found it," he announced as she invited him in. "Claim registered to a David Patterson. Same initials as your father." That's it, Dahlia agreed excitedly. Where is it? About 3 miles north of town, in the ridge behind Miller's old place. His expression sobered. Dahlia, I rode by there at first light. There are fresh tracks. Someone's been working the site recently. Barton, most likely. We need to establish your claim officially before he strips it clean. Aaron hesitated. There's something else. I found out how Barton knew about the gold. Your uncle's business partner, Jenkins, was in debt to Barton from gambling. When Sam died, Jenkins searched for anything valuable and found a preliminary assay report. He traded the information to clear his debt. The betrayal stung, though Dahlia had never met the man. So Barton's been searching for months. And getting desperate, Aaron confirmed. Which makes him dangerous. They formulated a plan. Aaron would take Dahlia to the claim office to register her inheritance properly. Then they would ride to the site with 2 deputies to assess what remained and establish her ownership visibly. At the claim office, the clerk was initially skeptical of Dahlia's right to the claim, but Aaron's authoritative presence and the evidence from Samuel Porter's journal convinced him. By noon, the paperwork was complete. Dahlia Porter was officially the owner of the North Ridge claim. As they prepared to ride out, Aaron drew Dahlia aside. Stay close to me, he instructed. If there's any sign of trouble, you ride straight back to town. Promise me. I promise, she said, touched by his concern. The ride to the claim took less than an hour. As they approached, Aaron signaled for caution. They dismounted and proceeded on foot through the trees until they could see the small mining operation, a crude shaft entrance with rudimentary equipment scattered around it. No one's here now, Aaron observed. But those tools were used recently. They approached cautiously, the deputies flanking them with rifles ready. The mine entrance was crude but well constructed, disappearing into the hillside. Your uncle knew what he was doing, Aaron commented, examining the support beams. This is solid work. Inside, they found evidence of recent digging and several small sacks of, or ready to be transported. Aaron examined one, his eyebrows raising. Rich vein, he confirmed. Your uncle wasn't exaggerating. The sound of approaching horses froze them all. Aaron quickly extinguished their lantern, plunging the mine into darkness. Stay here, he whispered to Dahlia, drawing his pistol. Deputies, with me. Terrified but determined, Dahlia pressed herself against the wall of the mine as the men moved toward the entrance. From outside came the sound of multiple horses and men's voices, one of which she recognized as Barton's. Someone's been here, Barton's voice carried clearly. Fresh tracks. Probably that Porter woman, another voice replied. Word in town is she's been asking questions about her uncle. Good, Barton said with malicious satisfaction. Saves us having to get it out of her. Once we deal with whoever's here, we'll pay a visit to the Donovan Ranch. The old woman won't be able to protect her. Anger surged through Dahlia at the threat to Margaret. Before she could think better of it, she moved toward the entrance, determined to confront these men who threatened the only family she'd found. She emerged into daylight just as Aaron and the deputies were ordering Barton and his 3 companions to drop their weapons. Dahlia, Aaron's voice was sharp with alarm. Get back. But it was too late. Barton had seen her, and his face twisted with greedy triumph. Well, if it isn't the Porter girl herself. Come to check on Uncle's gold. This claim is legally mine, Dahlia said firmly, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. Registered this morning at the claim office. Papers don't mean much out here, Barton sneered, his hand inching toward his gun despite Aaron's warning. Don't try it, Aaron growled. You're outnumbered, Barton. The tension stretched taut as a wire. Dahlia could see Barton calculating his chances, his eyes darting between Aaron, the deputies, and herself. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. Barton went for his gun, the deputies fired, and Aaron launched himself at Dahlia, knocking her to the ground and shielding her with his body as gunfire erupted around them. When the shooting stopped, Dahlia was trembling beneath Aaron's protective weight. Are you hurt? He demanded, his hands frantically checking her for injuries. No, she managed, her voice shaking. You? I'm fine. He helped her to her feet as the deputies secured the scene. Barton lay wounded but alive, his companions either similarly injured or with their hands raised in surrender. It's over, Aaron told her, his arms steady around her waist. You're safe now. As the deputies bound the prisoner's wounds, and prepared to transport them back to town. Aaron led Dahlia to a fallen log where they could sit. His hands were still shaking slightly as he pushed hair away from her face. "You scared 10 years off my life walking out like that," he admonished gently. "They threatened Margaret," Dahlia explained. "I couldn't let them hurt her because of me." Aaron shook his head, a mixture of exasperation and admiration in his eyes. "Brave and foolish," he murmured. Then, to her surprise, he cupped her face in his hands. "Dahlia Porter, when I saw you step out of that mine with Barton and his gun nearby, I realized something." "What?" she asked, breathless at his intensity. "That losing you would break me completely." His blue eyes held hers, vulnerable and honest. "I love you, Dahlia. I think I have since the moment you stood in that dusty street, alone but unbroken." Joy bloomed in Dahlia's chest, bright and overwhelming. "I love you too, Aaron. You really saw me when everyone else looked through me." His smile was radiant as he leaned forward, pressing his lips gently to hers in a kiss that promised protection, passion, and partnership. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "Your uncle's gold will give you options," he said softly. "You could go anywhere, do anything." "There's nowhere else I want to be," Dahlia replied without hesitation. "My home is here now, with you." The winter of 1878 brought heavy snows to Clearwater Creek, but for Dahlia, it was a season of unprecedented joy. The North Ridge claim proved even richer than anticipated, providing enough funds to secure her future while also benefiting the town she'd come to love. She and Aaron were married in Margaret Donovan's parlor just before Christmas, with the stern rancher giving Dahlia away with tears in her usually hard eyes. "You're the daughter I never truly had," Margaret told her privately before the ceremony. "And that man looks at you like you hang the moon. Don't let anyone ever make you feel like a burden again, girl. You're a blessing to those who deserve you." Standing before the Reverend, exchanging vows with Aaron, Dahlia remembered how far she'd come from that desperate young woman who'd arrived on the stagecoach months earlier. "I, Aaron, take you, Dahlia, as my wife." Aaron's strong voice carried through the room, his eyes never leaving hers. "You are the blessing I've waited for all my life." The words echoed in her heart as she spoke her own vows. From burden to blessing, the journey had been long and sometimes painful, but standing here now, surrounded by people who truly valued her, Dahlia knew she'd finally found where she belonged. That night, as snow fell softly outside their new home on the edge of town, Aaron held her close beneath warm quilts. "Happy, Mrs. Caldwell?" he murmured against her hair. "Completely," Dahlia answered, nestling into his embrace. "I came west with nothing, expecting nothing. Instead, I found everything." His arms tightened around her. "We found each other," he corrected gently. "And that's worth more than any gold." In the years that followed, Dahlia never forgot her journey from unwanted burden to cherished wife. She and Aaron built a life rich with love, eventually welcoming 2 children who grew up surrounded by the wild beauty of Wyoming and the steadfast love of their parents. Margaret Donovan, to everyone's surprise, softened in her later years, becoming a doting honorary grandmother to Dahlia's children. The gold from the North Ridge claim funded a proper school for Clearwater Creek, where Dahlia occasionally taught literature to frontier children hungry for stories of the wider world. And on quiet evenings, when Aaron would look at her across their dinner table with the same adoration he'd shown on their wedding day, Dahlia would remember her stepmother's cruel words and smile to herself. For she had learned the most important lesson of all, that worth isn't determined by others' limitations, but by those with the wisdom to recognize a true blessing when it appears.